show you how to use a data logger. The harness of the engine is not quite set up for it yet, but here's what you do. Here's the data logger. Has a mini USB on this side, a 9-pin DB9 connector here, and a slot for an SD card to actually do the recording. Install the card. When you plug this into the wire loom for the ECU, there's power to it only when you add power to the ECU or to the engine. As you can see, there's no green light there now. The problem with that, until we get people to wire in 12 volts to one of these wires, is that when you shut the engine down, it will not save the information. So what you need to do next is make sure this is all the way in, and then grab one of the, we're sending this out to people that are troubleshooting now, just any USB charger, and plug that into the wall or an extension cord, and that'll give you the 5 volts to keep the data logger alive after you shut the engine down. So before you do anything, once that's plugged in, the green light should be on. That's step one. Now when you turn power on to the airplane, the red light should be flashing. Okay, if you don't have this by this time, nothing's going to happen. So you make sure you get, number one, plug it into the 9-pin that's in the ECU harness. Number two, power up the box with the USB. Turn the power on to the airplane, and it should have a red flashing light. When you start the engine, the green light will start to flash slowly. That means it's recording. So we're going to do that next. Throttle to idle, fuel pump on, and clear the dog and start. Now film on here. So we're going to start the engine. Now the red light keeps flashing, and the green or yellowish light will flash slowly. That means it is in fact recording. Now you can also not have this plugged in with the USB when the airplane's running, and it will work just fine if you want to go test it and run it. But you cannot, just don't shut down the airplane before you plug this back in, because then it won't save the recording. You need that power. It's being powered from this side now, but not when you shut the engine down. So now we're going to shut down the engine, put the batteries off, and then the alternator off. Okay, so now it's saving the data. As you can tell, if we had not powered it from the opposite side with the USB, it would have not saved anything. So, because it needs a few milliseconds after shutdown with power. The other way to do this is to power 12 volt permanently to the power wire in this 9-pin connector, and we'd have to let you know which wire that is. All right. After this, you would take your SD card, and let's go and put it in the computer. And it shows up. It looks like it's the G drive on this computer, and you have a couple of files here, and I think only one of them, this top one, is the critical one, but in any case, just copy both of them, or save them both. In fact, you just go to your email, and then you go and look for the files in the G drive, and you would attach them and email them to us, and then we can take a look and see what's going on. Now another way to do this, which will be more permanent, and this would be good to keep a data logger with the airplane all the time, because it will record all the time. Every time you start the engine, it will have a new recording file. What you then need to do is do pin 8, which is red with something on some engines, but just red wire. You'd have to splice onto that wire and go directly to 12 volts, so that it's still 12 volts after the engine is shut down. And if you permanently wire that to 12 volts, then you would have, you might want to put a 1 amp fuse in there, then you will have the data logger working. Every time you start the engine, it will log data, and it would have that green light flashing slowly. When you shut down the engine, it'll stop, and then it makes a new file every time you go and fly and record any mishaps or hiccups or anything that might happen with the engine will be recorded automatically.